not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. I'm going to be reading from Matthew 5, verses 1 through 12. These are a series of blessings that Jesus is giving from the Mount, and they're known as the Beatitudes. When we first set out and decided we were going to try to reinvent our church, we decided that instead of trying to come up with new ways of inviting people in and generating interest in people in the pews, the first thing we were going to focus on was repairing or fixing ourselves. And I was asked that question a couple of times in a number of various forums. Well, what does it mean to fix yourselves? And I had come up with this idea. I think I was at Dixon Church, a Methodist church down the road, when they had asked this question, and came up with this impromptu quiz. And ever since, I have been trying to repeat this quiz here in this congregation annually, well, about once a year. These are fundamental questions about Christianity and our faith. And so, once again, I'm going to ask you all these questions. There is a pencil and paper in each of your pews. You should be able to find it. If you can't find it right next to you, there should be one in the pew in front of or behind you. But look for a pencil and a piece of paper. I'm going to ask a series of questions. You get to write down what you can remember. First question. And you know this is coming. God gave us 10 commandments at Sinai. 10 things. 10 fingers, 10 commandments. These are the absolutes. What are they? I'll give you a few seconds. 10 absolutes. I'll even give you one. Don't kill. As if you didn't have that one on your own. What are the other 9? Hopefully you've got about 5 by now. You don't have to write them all out completely. Just make sure that you know or you can identify what they are. Hopefully you've got 8 by now. I'm going to give you a few more seconds. All right. You can continue on if you need it, but Jesus was asked, of these 10 commandments, what is the most important commandment? What was Jesus' answer? What is the most important commandment? Jesus gave us a new commandment. What was it? A new commandment I give you. When Jesus was asked about sins and forgiveness, Jesus told us there is one thing, just one, that God will not forgive. What was it? $50-50 shot on this one. Are you a sinner? Yes or no? Jesus said there are 4 things that we will receive from Him and God as we gave them to others. What are those 4 things? As you do these 4 things, you will receive them yourselves. Now these few here, instead of asking you what the fruits of the Spirit are, we're going to speak to them specifically. You can use your own words, and when we go to the answer, just make sure that your answer and our answer line up a little bit. But to offer peace, you have to do something. What do you have to do to extend peace? To offer patience, you have to do something. What do you have to do to extend patience? To be kind, you have to do something. What do you have to do to be kind? To be gentle, you have to do something. What do you have to do to be gentle? What do you have to do to be generous? To preserve justice, to extend justice, you have to do something. What do you have to do to give justice? What do you have to do to give mercy? What do you have to do to forgive? And lastly, what do you have to do to extend grace? If you're going to give grace, what do you have to do? All right. Anybody need any extra time?
Yeah.
Next week.
The good news is this is all an open book test. All right, let's go through it. The 10 Commandments. I'm really hoping all of you feel like you got them all. I don't need to know who got what where, but in general, did everybody, by show of hands, did everybody get more than 8? 8 or more? Raise your hand. Okay, actually 8 or more is about the average, or to me, 8 is about the average. If you're 7 or 8, you're relatively average. Anybody get 9 or more? Okay, and did anybody feel like they got 10 or more?
10 or more.
All right, one person feels like they got 10. The way I like to remind people of the 10 Commandments, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. There are 4 that deal with our relationship with God. Got it? Don't have any other gods. Take my name in vain. Don't make any graven image. And honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. Those 4 deal with our relationship with God. No other gods, no graven image. Honor the Sabbath. Don't take my name in vain. 3 deal with basic crimes. Don't kill. Don't steal. Don't perjure yourself or bear false witness. 2, deal with our lusts. Don't covet. Don't commit adultery. And 1 is an outlier. Honor your mother and father. Those are the 10. Did you actually get them all, Mark?
No.
Perfect. Okay. Jesus was asked, what is the most important commandment? Did anybody feel like they got that? The reason I love this, okay, Mary feels like she's got it, and we'll check it in a second. The reason I love this question is because it's classic Jesus. There are 10 commandments. A person says straight up, what's the most important of these? You would think he would have chosen one of the 10. He did not. He chose with what Moses came down from Sinai with and said before giving the 10 commandments. The most important commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your spirit. And then he went on to say, and the second one is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. On this hang all the law and the prophets. All right, Mary, did you still get that?
Yep.
Good for you. Jesus gave us a new commandment. We're Christians in this room. I hope we got 100% on this one. What was the new commandment that Jesus gave us? Say it out loud.
Elio.
What was that?
Elio, that's what Tom says. Love each other.
Love each other, okay. What? Love one another. A new commandment I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. And then he says shortly later, by this they will know you're my disciples, by your love for one another. All right. Jesus said there's one thing that God will not forgive. Anybody know what it was? Mary, you want to try?
To worship any other god before him.
No.
Oh, the Holy Ghost.
Blaspheme the Holy Spirit. That's the one sin that God will not forgive. And it kind of makes sense. If you think about God and the Holy Spirit, what you're really saying here is the only thing I can't forgive is you not even acknowledging or believing that I exist. If you don't even believe in me, how can I offer you anything? All right, this was a yes or no question. Are you a sinner? What's the Bible say? Yes or no? I see everybody nodding their head yes on that. And personally, in my teaching and preaching, that's the one I think that most people know and subconsciously have the hardest time with. Everybody will say very casually, I'm a sinner. But when pressed with other people's sins or with actually looking at their lives, well, I'm not that bad a sinner, or I'm not that bad a sinner comparing it to other people. But the reality is the Bible says if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. There are 4 things Jesus told us we would receive as we gave them to others. Anybody want to give one of the 4?
Love.
Love? That was not one of the 4.
Forgiveness.
Say it again, Ed.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness is one of the 4. 3 left.
Mercy.
Mercy. 2 left. Mercy and forgiveness are 2 of the 4.
Acceptance.
Grace, the definition of grace is acceptance. So then I'm going to give you that one. Yes, grace is something that you will receive as you gave. Acceptance or grace. And the 4th one that I'm not hearing is justice. Judge righteously, as you judge others, so you will be judged. All right. The fruits of the Spirit are love and joy, peace and patience, kindness, gentleness, generosity, faith, and self-control. So when I asked the question, I didn't ask what the fruits of the Spirit are, because a lot of you know the song. But the questions were, to offer peace, you have to do something. What do you have to do to offer peace?
Be at peace.
Be at peace?
With yourself.
I think that's not the answer, but it's a starting point. Anybody else want a shot?
Forgive those that wrong you.
You have to forgive those that wrong you? That's closer. It should be a variation of this. You have to choose against defending what is yours. What is yours as far as a belief, what is yours as far as property, any number of things. In order to give peace, somebody has to have offended you, and you're not going to respond. Okay? Comfortable with that? To be patient, you have to do something. What is it? Say it louder, Jim.
Patience with others.
have patience with others, be patient. You have to choose against action. I want to do something, but I'm not. Patience. To be kind. To be kind, you have to do something. What do you have to do? Say it louder, Jim.
Be kind to others.
That's true, but we can't just say to be kind, be patient, be patient. We have to say, what does it mean to be kind? What does it mean? You have to consider how other people feel. In order for me to be kind to you right now, I have to consider, how our conversations are going. How do you feel? And if I think that you might be feeling one way or another, if I'm going to be kind, I have to be aware of that so that I can be more gentle and patient and all these other things we're talking about. To be gentle, this should be a little easier. To be gentle, you have to do something. What is it? You have to set aside your strength. You have the ability to do something. I can take it. I can force it. I can do any number of things. But if I'm gentle, I have to choose not to do it. Most parents, I think, can understand this one. You're total power in a family, but you're gentle with a child for a reason. You could do a lot more. Sometimes you even want to do a lot more. And some parents that struggle with being a good parent can't control it, can't control their temper, if you will. But to be gentle, you have to set aside your strength. To be generous, what do you have to do? You have to give from your abundance. You have to give from your abundance. I forget who said this. The Roman philosopher. He ended up becoming a Christian. Cicero is what I want to say. But basically he said, a person commits as many sins as he has things that they do not need and don't give away. If you think about that, that's generosity. If you're not using it, why aren't you giving it away? To preserve justice. We were talking about justice a moment ago. To preserve justice, you have to do something. Now we said earlier, justice is the measure you get, the measure you give. But what is justice? We actually gave a whole sermon on this a few months back. Is justice what you want?
Be fair.
Be fair. How would we be fair?
Consider everybody's, I don't know, I'm not saying.
You were getting there. You were getting there. To be justice, to give justice, we have to put ourselves in another person's thoughtful place. We don't have to agree with them, but we have to understand where they're coming from. We have to understand their truth. We have to understand why they think something. We have to be fair. We have to give them our time, our patience, our kindness, all these other fruits of the Spirit, if we're going to be just to them. Because we want them to do all those things for us, if you remember. If, I'm making this up, Eddie, you're emperor, and you have decided that there are some things we're going to do, and I stand up and I say, Eddie, I don't want to do that. Justice looks at, okay, why are you saying that? What is it about what I view as true and righteous that you don't want to do, and why? And working through it, treating me with kindness and generosity and as an equal. Justice is a really tricky thing to define because we all say it, we all want justice. But it's hard when we have to roll it around. We want justice for us. But giving justice can be very difficult because usually it's having to give justice to somebody that we don't agree with. We may come back to that.
Okay, why do we have, now, if someone's a mass murderer, why do I care how they feel?
Great question. The question on the table was, if it's a mass murderer, why do I care how they feel? And there's actually going to be two reasons for that. The first reason is because some people consider mass murderers to be soldiers or rebels or things like that.
Like the guy that goes in and kills people with a dog and shit
I got you. I'm actually going to go to that. And for those of you who can't hear, we're talking specifically about just, we'll call it a criminal serial killer. But the first thing is, my point is, when we're talking about soldiers or rebels or things like that, they get called terrorists and mass murderers by the people that disagree with them. So there's an aspect there. But the second part is a little bit more simple. Justice can consider what they're doing. It doesn't mean we have to agree with it. If there is someone who just thinks that they need to kill him, and I'm the hand of God, well, we can look at that situation and we can say we, as a community, cannot live under these conditions, and justice can imprison that person. Justice can isolate them. Justice can even, under certain circumstances, with capital punishment, remove them from this world if we don't feel like there's anything we can do. God gave, as Old Testament justice, God gave us instructions to stone them to death. Now, Jesus gave us some very, very different instructions when it comes to justice. We'd have a hard time stoning anybody to death if we're going to call ourselves Christian. We were talking today with the Beatitudes. And Jesus, actually we're going to talk, I think, next week or the week after about some of the things that Jesus tells us to do when we're dealing with people that we really are struggling with, like turning the other cheek. Jesus said those things too. But for the purpose of this conversation and justice is being aware of where they're coming from. And once we know where they're coming from, then we can decide as a community, not necessarily even as an individual, but as a community, what we're going to do. That's an aspect of justice. The commandment, thou shalt not kill, is really defined as thou shalt not murder. And that boils down to something like we're talking about right here. I have to kill to eat, whether it's beef or whether it's a carrot. I still have to kill the plant. The instruction is very straightforward. Don't kill. But I have to kill to exist. But if you look at it from don't murder, then you're taking a look at, you can be a soldier, you can do a whole number of other things where death and killing can even be involved. But you're not making that decision as an individual. In a war, you're making that decision in a community, as a government. And even then, you have some sub-responsibilities. This is complicated stuff. I'm trying not to get too deep into it. But as a soldier, I may be shooting people across the line, and people may be dying. I may be dropping a bomb, and people may be dying. But whether it's the Quran or whether it's the Ten Commandments, if someone raises their hands and says, I'm done, I want out, when they're no longer a combatant, if you shoot them then, you just committed a sin. And that's the nuance and the difficulties that we have when we're dealing with some of these offenses and these expectations of God and Christ. All right. To give mercy, you have to. You have to choose not to punish someone who deserves punishment. That's the only way you can give mercy. They deserve a punishment, and yet you have to decide not to do it. That's mercy. To forgive, you have to. Bob, you had forgiveness earlier. What's your definition of forgiveness? To forgive something, you have to let it go. You have to let it go. They've done something. They've injured me. It's not right. It's not just. I have the power to do something. I can seek justice with the courts. I can blow up their house, do things that I shouldn't do. But forgiveness is none of those things. Forgiveness is I just let it go. One of the hardest things that we can do as a Christian. And there are times when, going back to the serial killer, where we can not just let it go because it's going to happen again tomorrow. We cannot just ignore that crime. And justice means that we have to actually still do something and remove them to protect other people. That's actually biblical, righteous justice. But forgiveness is the tough one. Just let it go. Grace. Mary, you had this one. You even alluded to it. To offer grace, we have to what?
Accept everybody.
Accept everybody. Do we accept that serial killer and murderer?
Yes,
Do we forgive him and just let it go?
yes.
Okay, I'm gonna disagree, but okay, that's all right. And Mary and I have had conversations through the years about all means all, and I would say no, and she says yes, it does. She's correct on the front end of this. Grace is embracing, accepting someone as they are. Okay? We all seek grace from Christ and from God. We all pray that we will be embraced and welcomed into the kingdom of heaven. Despite the fact that we're sinners, despite the fact that we've made mistakes, we're hoping that there's enough forgiveness, there's enough mercy, that we will be embraced with grace. But it's just like everything else. We have to give it to receive it. So, if someone offends us, this is where I'll deviate from Mary and kind of go back to our common, the serial killing murderer. I can take that person and set them aside to protect the rest of the population, so no more people are injured or killed. And mercy may be that I don't kill them or stone them to death. I may put them in prison for the rest of their life. That may be mercy, because I can do worse. Justice has been served, mercy has been served. Forgiveness is a little trickier, but it can play into this example. If there are people who have family members that have been murdered by this person, they want retribution, they want revenge, they want justice, and yet forgiveness dictates that they have to let it go. He's already been excluded, he's already been imprisoned, no one else is going to be hurt. The rest for forgiveness is to let go of this poison that this person has inflicted upon you in anger and frustration and this non-Christian beliefs and feelings that we have, and just let it go. He's in jail. Justice has been served, mercy has been served, forgiveness can be served. Grace, I don't know that I can embrace the serial killer. I don't know that I can embrace Hitler. I don't know that I should embrace it. So I can't go with all means all. I give you credit for your ability to embrace Hitler and the serial murderer. I will leave the rest of that to God. Me talking. I can't speak for you all on how you would handle grace in those situations. All right. As we went through the answers, I'll just ask you all how you did, first of all. How many you got right, how many you got wrong. How many you may disagree with, in which case we can talk about it afterwards. You can tell me why you disagree, and I can either adapt or teach to it. We've decided that no one got all 10 of the 10 commandments yet, so we need to keep working on those. I can't imagine anything more fundamental across Judaism, Christianity, or Islam than those 10 statements, and we should all be able to rattle them off pretty quickly. I think most of us can get the fruits of the Spirit, but understanding what the words mean. Not picking on anybody when we say, to be kind, you have to, to be kind, you have to give kindness. We have to understand what the words mean so that in our day-to-day lives we can say, am I being kind? Am I being just? Am I being fair? Generous, whatever. All right. The real question then, and this is for you all, you can talk to me afterward, but are these fair questions? Are they fair? Should every Christian be able to answer these questions in one form or another? And if they're not fair, then let's talk about that. Because I'm trying to ask fair, baseline, how can we say we're a Christian and not know what Jesus said was the most important commandment, kind of thing. And none of this, obviously, I don't want anybody to leave here if they didn't get 100% on all the questions and feel like I'm talking down to anyone. I don't expect, even at this stage, 5 years in, for everybody to know all the answers to these questions. I really don't. And I happen to know them for two reasons. One is because I preach them week to week to week to week. You guys get tired of me repeating some of these things. But the other reason is because I know they're coming. But in fairness, I've always been able to speak, for the last 5, 6, 8 years, I knew the 10 Commandments. I knew some of the basics of these. I was not able to quote the fruits of the Spirit. And it took an evolution of time for me to be able to articulate, what does justice mean? What does generosity mean? Those kinds of things. So, and I don't expect everybody watching or sitting here to be able to sit there and rattle those things off. But even when we think we know, well, I need to be fair. What does fair really mean in the real world? How does it apply? What are the tactics to be fair? All right. The last thing I'll say with this is, just like everything else, and I kind of smile when I say it, these are all open book questions and answers. The answers are there. All we have to do is remind ourselves, or even test ourselves from time to time. Wake up on the first of the month and say, okay, what are the 10? Can I rattle them off? And if I can't, gotta study them again. What are the fruits? Can I rattle them off? Okay, I'm going to study them again. Because those are the basics, those are the foundations. And as you start with those things, then everything else kind of permeates and grows up from there. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know you have in the past. I hope you're enjoying it now. It's always kind of fun to teach it and preach it. And I pray that every one of you, one day soon, will be able to rattle off every one of these questions, answers, and even teach others to do the same. As you're turning to that, next week's message will be about the church. Not just our church, but the church in general, the Christian church. Is it on a mission, or has it been on a vacation? The reading for the week is Matthew 5. We started Matthew 5 in today's gospel lesson, but there's a lot more to it. And the reflection for the week is, how are you doing with this love your enemy instruction that Jesus gave us? Let's say the prayer together on number 477. Open wide the window of our spirits, Lord, and fill us full of light. Open wide the door of our hearts, that we may receive and entertain you with all our powers of adoration and love. Hi, I'm Dan Thaxton, and I'm the pastor here in New Lebanon. I hope you found this morning's message interesting, educational, and maybe even a little inspiring. And if you have, I'd like you to at least consider giving some thought to pressing the like button on your video. That will help other people who are looking for similar quality content to find it if they're doing searches on YouTube. If you found this information useful and valuable to you, please consider giving some thought to making a donation to the church. Not everybody realizes that our church is completely voluntary. There is no payroll. So all of your offerings will go directly to mission and outreach, or indirectly in the way of internet and electrical services and the like. Lastly, if you found this content interesting and useful, we have an entire library of similar messages and lessons available on our internet site at www.newlebanonumc.com. New Lebanon UMC is all one word, .com. And there you'll find a collection of messages, lessons categorized by title and subject, with a YouTube link to finding it. With that, thank you again for watching, and I wish you all a very blessed day.